Jordan is at the crossroads of the Middle East, connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe, and surrounded on all sides by countries that are in conflict with one another now or in the past. Since the dawn of civilization, Jordan's geography has played an important role in connecting East and West, North and South. The King's Highway, mentioned in the Old Testament, is over 5,000 years old and was used as a north to south trading route in ancient times. I have come to Jordan with a small group of travelers after many years of waiting for the right tour and the right time to come along. Our visit includes the area in and around Amman, the ancient city of Petra, and Wadi Rum. During the Greek and Roman periods, the city of Amman was known as Philadelphia, meaning City of Brotherly Love. It was renamed Amman during the Islamic period. Several important ruins in Amman remain from Roman times. Romans conquered much of the area in 63 BC, starting a period of Roman rule that lasted for 4 centuries. The Temple of Hercules occupies an important place in the citadel, an ancient site with a long history of occupation by many great civilizations. Only a few columns remain from the temple and 2 disembodied fragments of a colossal statue of Hercules. The fingers of one hand of the statue lie on the ground in front of the temple to remind us of a time when Rome ruled this part of the world. Most of the buildings still visible at the site are from the Roman, Byzantine, and Muslim periods. The view from the citadel overlooks high-density settlements of displaced refugees that make up much of the population of modern Amman. In 1921, the population of Amman was roughly 700,000 people, and this city has grown to about 4 million people today. Most of this population growth is due to refugees fleeing war in neighboring countries. Jordan shares common borders with Iraq, Syria, and Israel. Palestinian refugees flooded into Jordan as a result of the 1948 Palestine War. The Iraqi War drove the immigration of Iraqis between 1990 and 2003. And Syrians have been coming since 2011. Huge areas in Amman have been settled by these displaced refugees. We are so fortunate in the United States not to have suffered the ravages of war and recent history. Below the citadel is a Roman theater, originally built between 138 and 161 CE. During the reign of Roman Emperor Antonius Pius. Beautifully restored in 1957, it is used today as a place to present cultural events. A smaller theater or Odeon nearby was built at roughly the same time as the theater. We have a short break to rest and drink a cup of fresh sweet mint tea before resuming our explorations. The next place to see is the Nymphaeum. It is hard to imagine the fountains and public water supply that served the city from here. Not much remains of this once beautiful building. I always look forward to a visit to the open-air markets. Oh, the sights and sounds of people buying and selling. A little taste of this and a little taste of that. Oh, yum! Local markets are captivating to me. There is so much to take in all at once. This is a market for the people, not just tourist shops. The market is alive and bustling with people completing their morning shopping. So different than the world I live in back home, where a visit to the supermarket can be a rather mundane experience.
You get saffron and all types of spices in here.
On our way to lunch, we pass shops full of colorful clothing. It is hard to pass by without stopping for a closer look as we make our way along the busy street toward a small restaurant to enjoy a late lunch and then an afternoon at leisure. Today is a surprise for me when we visit the Greco-Roman ruins of the city of Jerash. I had never heard of this Roman city before coming to Jordan, and I am excited to hear that it is one of the best preserved Greco-Roman sites in the world. This fact really surprised me. Jerash was an important imperial center for the Romans, surrounded by fertile lands that produced abundant food for the Roman Empire, and was also the center of the valuable trade routes relocated here from Petra. The Roman ruins in Jerash were virtually abandoned after a series of earthquakes from 749 to 850 AD and a brief occupation by the Crusaders in the 12th century. It remained largely undisturbed until 1806, when a German explorer started excavating the site. The triumphant Hadrian's Arch, built in AD 129 in honor of the visit of Emperor Hadrian, is the first thing you see when approaching the site from the south side. A restoration in 2005 brought the crumbling arch back to much of its former glory. Beyond the arch is the Hippodrome, which hosted chariot races and other sports in front of up to 15,000 spectators. Only a small portion of the spectator stands remain. Charioteers and gladiators once performed and fought before crowds in this stadium. After passing the Hippodrome, we enter the city via the South Gate. One of the most eye-catching sights of Jerash is the Forum, sometimes referred to as the Oval Plaza, with 160 Ionic columns from the Greek period. The Greek columns that once lined the major streets in Jerash were relocated by the Romans to this plaza. Corinthian columns replaced the Greek columns along the city's main thoroughfare, Cardo Maximus, and the east-west major cross street. The Cardo was really the lifeblood of the city. This is where most vendors set up shops, and major buildings lined the street. The Nymphium provided public water to the city by fountains and pools. The Cardo is still paved with its original stones, rutted by the wheels of chariots that once traveled its length. It follows a straight line through the city and connects to the North Gate. Jerash had 2 theaters to provide entertainment for the residents and tradesmen that poured through this important city. The Temple of Artemis was built by the Romans. Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt and the moon, is called Diana by the Romans, and she was the patron goddess of the city. I could have spent more time here trying to puzzle out the history of what I had seen in this ancient city, but after 3 hours of exploring, it was time to head for lunch. We have a well-earned lunch and then drive through fertile green hills lined with olive groves to Ajlan, the site of a 12th century Saracen castle, used primarily to defend against Crusader incursions from across the Jordan Valley. The hill on which the castle sits is a perfect location, offering bird's-eye views over the surrounding countryside and over the 3 main passages leading to the Jordan Valley. It is said to have been the site of an isolated Christian monastery, but by 1184, in the middle of the Crusades, the monastery had fallen into ruin. An Arab general and nephew of Saladin took this opportunity to build a fortress on the ruins, partly to limit the expansion of the Crusader kingdoms and partly to protect the iron mines of the nearby hills. The castle served as Saladin's base as he evicted the Crusaders from Jordan in 1189. The remains of the castle are a confusing blend of the former monastery and the castle that was built over it. It is worth a climb to the top of the castle for views over the surrounding countryside and to imagine what the fort was like in the time of Saladin. On our way to Petra, we drive along the King's Highway and make a stop at Mount Nebo. It is believed that Moses was shown the Promised Land by God while on this mountain, and many Christians also believe that Moses was buried on the mountain by God himself. From the summit of Mount Nebo, you can view the Dead Sea and the Jordan Valley. For many years I have held the dream close to my heart of visiting Jordan to see the historic city of Petra. My parents had been there many years ago, and then I saw the film Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The scenes filmed in Petra made me want to go even more. Finally, in the winter of 2019, I see this place for myself and make my dream come true. As I follow our guide through the ticket entrance to Petra, already there are signs that we are following the path to the lost city. It doesn't seem so lost now as I join many tourists heading toward the Slot Canyon entrance to Petra, known as the Siq. In Arabic, the word Siq means the shaft. Horses, horse carts, and people all head for the Siq. This might not be the mystical experience I was hoping for. My first sighting of a Nabatean tomb is thrilling, and before I know it, tombs of different designs are lining the sandstone edges of the valley. Bright sunshine of the open valley fades as I enter the cool, dark Slot Canyon. Now everything seems more magical and personal. It is the natural gateway to Petra. I am giddy with excitement as I make my way along the Sick. It is a winding, twisting path about 3/4 of a mile long that sometimes narrows to about 10 feet in width. An ingenious system of water channels in the Sick brought water to Petra to grow crops and make life possible for the 30,000 people from all over the world that once lived here. The occasional horse cart clatters on by, bouncing over the rough gravel and Roman paving stones that make up the floor of the Sick. I am eager to see what is just around the corner, but commit myself to absorbing all I can as I travel slowly along the Slot Canyon. I am reminded of the slot canyons of our own southwestern desert, yet the carvings in the sandstone walls tell me I am in a wondrous and historic place. I forget about the other tourists and concentrate on deepening my experience. Carved feet and legs are all that remain of a statutory group of a caravan of men and camels carved into the rock. The rest have been worn away by time and floods over the past 2,000 years. Imagine walking down a slot canyon for nearly a mile, and then this grand building carved from sandstone appears before your eyes. You may have imagined this moment, but it is a surprise when it finally comes into view. My first glimpse of the most famous building in Petra, the 130-foot tall structure known as the Treasury, really does take your breath away. It is magnificent. I savor the moment before stepping out of the Sick. Emerging out of the Sick, I'm immediately overwhelmed with the sights and sounds of camels, vendors, and the many travelers from all over the world that made the same journey that day. I am jolted back to the world of today, but for a while I was able to dream of the ancient city of Petra. Well, I guess I did not expect to have this place to myself. It is one of the new 7 wonders of the world. Back in the modern world, I share this amazing place with many others. For some, it is another day at work. But for us travelers, it is the experience of a lifetime. A turn to the right takes me to the city center through the avenue of facades, named for the stone-carved tombs, palaces, and homes that line the way. "2,000 years of erosion has damaged many of the rock-cut facades, but enough of their magnificence remains to stir the imagination about this ancient city that was once considered to be heaven on earth by the early Persians." The path begins to widen into the more open valley of the city's center. Dozens of tombs carved from the rose-red sandstone lie within the city of Petra. Petra was a major trade center and trading route, and a pleasure resort that drew Egyptians, Syrians, Greeks, Judeans, and Romans to make their homes here. Each culture brought its own influences in art and style, and Petra is a blend of all these cultures. In the end, it was the Roman Empire that absorbed the former Nabatean capital of Petra in 106 AD, and soon after that its importance as a trading center declined. By the close of the Byzantine Empire in 700 AD, Petra was slowly abandoned and then forgotten after new trade routes by the sea were developed. In the early 1800s, a European traveler rediscovered this lost city. But it had never really been lost, as Bedouins had always frequented this place, and some were living in the magnificent tombs when it was rediscovered by the Western world. Tomb raiders looted most of the tombs long ago, and their treasures were thus lost. Yet only about 15% of the city has been uncovered. The vast majority is still underground and untouched. When the Romans took control of Petra around 100 CE, they channeled their energy into cut rock avenues and edifices of the city center. The city center has its very own Roman main street, lined with the remains of public fountain, water supply, agoras, theaters, and temples. The remains of a freestanding Byzantine church dominates the city center, and it was built before the shifting trade routes robbed Petra of its importance and viability that led to the abandonment of the city 1,500 years ago. Like so many ancient sites, Petra requires an active imagination to raise the site from the past, to flesh out the remnants of walls and the few columns in order to resurrect their former glory. But the tombs and monumental buildings of past empires remain to remind us of the glory that once was Petra. After seeing the magnificence of Petra, I was looking forward to visiting Wadi Rum, just south of Petra at the western edge of the Arabian Desert. Wadi Rum is a place of unique beauty, with a maze of monolithic rock formations, dramatically rising up from the sandy desert floor. In some ways it reminds me of places in the southwest desert of the United States, but with camels. As a teenager, I fell in love with the movie Lawrence of Arabia. The actors were handsome. The music was thrilling. And the cinematography stunning. I wanted to learn more about the history of World War I in the deserts of Arabia. I obtained a worn copy of T.E. Lawrence's book, 7 Pillars of Wisdom, about the British war campaign in 1917. I was caught up in the history of how the Arab tribes were used to further British and French aims in the region, setting the stage for the continuing conflicts that we see in the Middle East today. In a pivotal action of the Arab Revolt, British officer T.E. Lawrence united the tribes of Arabia and led 50 men through the desert sands to mount a surprise attack against the Turks, who occupied the Red Sea port of Aqaba. Not expecting an attack from the desert, the Turks were quickly overwhelmed and defeated. Aqaba was a small village back then, but today it is a thriving modern port city of about 150,000 people. For our visit to Wadi Rum, we all clamber aboard the open pickup beds and seat ourselves along the benches to set off on our adventure into this magnificent landscape. In his book, T.E. Lawrence describes Wadi Rum as a vast, echoing, and godlike place. Once you have been to this part of the Arabian desert, there will always be a yearning to return. In the 1980s, this rock formation was renamed Seven Pillars of Wisdom, after Lawrence's book of the same name. Before it was renamed, it was known as the Mountain of the Plague. Not a great name if you wish to attract visitors. The change of name to Seven Pillars of Wisdom identifies Wadi Rum with T.E. Lawrence and the Bible. Petroglyphs and inscriptions in Wadi Rum trace human existence here back some 1,200 years. Sources of water in the wadi made it an important stop along the main caravan trading route. A favorite quote of mine from Lawrence's book is the following one.
All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds, wake up in the day to find it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dreams with open eyes, to make it possible.
The face of Lawrence was carved into a rock at Bara Sik in 1917, and the face of Prince Abdullah, later the first king of Jordan, was carved into an adjacent face of the same rock. Our brief visit to Wadi Rum gave us just a glimpse of the wonders that this place has to offer. Desert camps scattered throughout the wadi offer an opportunity for visitors to get to know this place so much more intimately and to experience the morning sunrise and the evening stars. How do I repay Wadi Rum, or any other place, for its very existence? What do I owe the earth for all this beauty that it gave up for nothing? All I can do is to share its beauty with others, in hopes that this place will be protected, just because it nourishes the soul, because that is what we all need. If it is within my power, I will return to this place that makes me feel infinitely small and yet somehow renewed with the wonder of nature.